I'd like to introduce Joe Morrison, who's with the 49th State Angel Fund. He's the director. He's an innovator in his own right as he holds the unique role of a municipal venture capitalist. You see, the 49th State Angel Fund was started by an allocation from the U.S. Department of Treasury's Small Business Credit Initiative and gave the municipality of Anchorage funding to run as a venture capital function. Joe was the first person to create and manage this program in its inception in 2012, and he was there until 2014, and then he returned again in 2017. In addition to creating this program, he has founded Deal Boss, Biz 21 Consulting, and Launch Alaska. Please welcome Joe.
Well, hello, Kitsap. How are you doing today? Can you hear me? You can hear me? All right. Well, we've got energy in the room. Let's talk a little bit about my background. Then we're going to talk about why we're doing this today and what this is all about. So I split my time between Kitsap and Alaska. I'm an Alaska kid, and as Monica just discussed, I run a venture capital function in Alaska. I've been working in the entrepreneurial community building space for the last 7 years. And what I'd like to impart before I introduce Dave Parker, our keynote speaker, is why this is important for all of us and for the community of Kitsap. In economic development, you can do a couple different things. One of the best things you can do is you can grow it. You can look to the businesses already in your region, the Watson Furnitures, the Safe Boat Internationals, all the other companies, big and small, and you can say, what do you need in terms of a policy environment, in terms of community capital, infrastructure? What do you need to thrive? And you can try and provide it. Growth, business retention and expansion. Great idea. We want the companies that are here to thrive, to stay, and to hire more people. You can try and buy your way into economic development, and it turns out that's a lot harder. You can work with site selectors, you can try to be the lowest common denominator, you can compete for corporate headquarters, you can compete for the next manufacturing plant, but it's kind of difficult because you're competing with 100 plus other organizations and communities that are trying to do the exact same thing, and you're trying to beat them on numbers, the lowest common denominator. And even tougher than that, debatably, is bottom-up entrepreneurship, grassroots entrepreneurship, creating an environmental place, an economic part of your community that says entrepreneurship's really important here. It's important that we have that in our community. Just like entrepreneurship, if you embark on a bottom-up economic development strategy, there's no guarantee it's going to work. Just like 50% of startup businesses might fail. There's no guarantee that your economic development strategy of enabling entrepreneurship in your community will work. It's going to take years. Results will be really difficult to see. They may not show up. So why does it matter? It matters. Here's the best argument I've heard for it. And it's not because you're going to build the next $5 billion software company in Kitsap County, although Avalara is remarkably big. This is about your daughters and your sons and your neighbors. It's about saying to the people from this community, you can grow up to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. Yes, that's good. You can also grow up to be an entrepreneur if you want, and that is an equally valid career path. And there's hope and there's ambition for you to create the company and the kind of value you want to create right here in Kitsap County. Here's the bad news and the good news. Bad news first, good news second, and then we'll get to Dave. The bad news is you've lost some human talent. It's not the end of the world. I know a venture capitalist from South Kitsap. As far as I know, he brings the kids back to see his grandparents every now and then. I don't know that he's involved in South Kitsap life, okay? Just this week at Seattle Startup Week, I worked with Dave helping put together some financing tracks for Seattle Startup Week. I was talking to somebody who's a leader in the Seattle Startup Week community. He says, oh, I'm from North Kitsap. And I left because there wasn't a lot going on my side of the water, all right? Now here's the bright spot. This is some of the human capital that's been lost, but people are returning to Kitsap, people are moving to Kitsap, and people are staying in Kitsap to try and create their own companies. An example of somebody who I like to point to as a pure entrepreneur, has very few resources and makes it work, is a guy named Cody Morgan out of Port Orchard. Everybody said he's not going to be able to build a tap room. Turns out he raised $38,000 on Kickstarter. His community supported him, and he's got one of the coolest places in our town to go have a beer. We have people coming back. Many of you know Vibe Co-works in Poulsbo, and Elena Imbach and the crew that built out that beautiful building, one of the most beautiful co-working spaces I've ever seen. Hard to imagine what that would have been possible 3 or 4 years ago, but Elena and her crew made it happen, and it's a gathering place for innovation in a community. So the truth is, this is important because without innovation and entrepreneurship, the future might be just a little less bright for people in a community. Without innovation and entrepreneurship, you might not have as vibrant of an economic future. You might not be able to determine your own outcomes. Kitsap's doing great. Kitsap is doing remarkably well economically. And quite frankly, there are plenty of communities across the nation, particularly in the middle of it, that would love to be Kitsap. But Dave Parker here is here to tell us how we can make it even better. All right, without further ado, Dave Parker.